Right, let's try this one. I can actually shout loudly, but I'm not sure if I can really shout loudly enough to reach everybody at the back. So, as I said, many of you are aware that every year at this time we come along to this forum to give an overview of our rent level proposals for next year. It generally is the main discussion topic at this event, and of course is probably the most important one for a number of reasons. The level of rent that we set and the rent levels that are ultimately agreed by our Housing and Communities Committee affect all of our tenants. We've got over 7,600 tenants, and this is probably the most important decision that affects everybody. As a landlord, we're required to consult with tenants on our rent strategy and ensure that any decisions that are made reflect your views. So we understand for those of you that come to this event on a regular basis, you're probably more familiar with the rent setting proposals and the process and how that works. For those of you, for anybody in the room that's new to this, I'm going to apologise in advance if you feel that we're bombarding you with information. We're required to share this information with you. I think there'll be differing levels of knowledge and understanding in the room. Some people are quite familiar with it. Happy to explain any of the detail of it after we've gone through the presentations, because what I would say is some of it's quite straightforward, some of it is a bit more complicated. So if you can bear with us as we go through this, and we will try our best to explain it as clearly as we can, and we'll try our best to answer any questions that you've got in the best way that we possibly can. But we're required to give you this level of detail in terms of the information. So please just bear with us. And as I say, it's a really important decision and really important process for everybody as we go through it. So, okie doke. We need to provide you with the information each year to meet our requirements as a local authority. The housing regulator requires us to share this information with you and to ensure that you're aware of it and how the process impacts on you. Okay, as I said, the process is complex. The process actually starts very early in the year. I'm going to give a background overview of the budget setting process, and importantly details of some of the feedback that you and other tenants have given us. Okay, next slide. The housing revenue account is self-financing. So our housing revenue account is the account where all of the tenants' rent money sits. It's self-financing, and we don't get any other money into that account from the Scottish Government or from the Council. There are many positive aspects of that. We're not directly affected like other council services are by any Scottish Government reductions in funding to the council, so you'll be aware of some of that. There are negative aspects to that as well. Because it's self-financing, we have to bear our own costs and pressures from generating our own income. So there's goods and bads about it. Most of the income, 93% of the income into our housing account, is from the tenants' monies, and that equates to £26.5 million. So £26.5 million comes in terms of rent money. So if you think as a tenant, we've got 7,600 tenants, all the annual rent that they pay, that's what goes into it. And you'll see from the slide within Perth and Kinross, our average rent levels across our housing stock do remain much lower than our average rent levels, than the average rent levels across Scotland. Okay, so we do well in this area. We're one of the lowest rents in Scotland for council tenants, yet we're delivering good quality services. And ensuring that our rents remain affordable to our tenants, both our current tenants and our future tenants, is a priority, and it's a key consideration for us as we go through this rent setting process. Okay? Now, this is the slide that should be familiar with everybody, and I think everybody quite likes it. It shows the breakdown of the housing revenue account spend and shows how much of every pound of your rent money is broken down across the services that we deliver. So, for example, repairs and maintenance, 30p in every pound of rent goes on repairs and maintenance, and that's emergency repairs, day-to-day repairs, voids, adaptations, and also the capital investment. 28p goes on neighbourhood services, and that's our locality housing team, so you'll all be aware of your locality housing team, and that's, for example, for our housing officers, housing assistants, the delivery of a sheltered housing service, and our allocations and housing options teams, and some aspects of housing support. Financing costs at 27p in every pound are our loan charges for past and future borrowing costs. So we need to borrow money to deliver a capital programme, and that's our borrowing loan charges. And the CFCR, if you want a detailed explanation of this, you can ask Stephen, who's sitting at the end here, but that's funding that's in our revenue budget that we transfer to the capital budget to reduce the level of borrowing required to fund our capital programme. And that amounts to 8p in every pound. And I'm noting here that this is down from 10p from last year. Michelle's put a wee note here. And then finally, the support services at 7p in every pound is what we call a corporate recharge. So the housing service sits within a number of services within the council, and some of the other council services support us with things like HR, human resources, finance, business improvement, and tenant participation. So we pay other council services for some of the services they deliver to us, and that equates to 7p in every pound of your rent money. Okay, hopefully that's quite clear, but happy to answer any questions. The next slide gives an overview of our housing revenue account monitoring group. I'm not sure if there are any tenants here that sit on that group. If so, you should be experts in all of this. It's a new group that was set up to ensure that tenants are involved in scrutinising our housing revenue account and how the rent money that you pay is spent. So ensuring that the rent money you pay is only used to directly benefit council tenants, and that the services we provide you are value for money. So I have to say a huge thank you to everybody that sits on the Housing Revenue Account Monitoring Group. And if you're interested in hearing more about the group, we've got a couple of tenants here. I think Lynn and Gerald are both here, who I'm sure would be happy to speak to you about the work that they're doing. And we'd also be delighted to welcome on board any new tenants. So if you are interested, please speak to Diana or Judy, who have disappeared, and they can arrange to send you some information, because it's really important. The group really are challenging us as a housing team in terms of how we're spending tenants' money. So I think that kind of independent scrutiny is really good, and I have to say they're doing a fantastic job. Again, the Housing Charter sets out, so this is set nationally by the Housing Regulator, it sets the standards and outcomes that all social landlords, so not just us as Perth and Kinross Council, but all local authority landlords across Scotland, must deliver on these charter outcomes when delivering housing activities. There are 16 outcomes altogether, and the two that we've got on the slide, outcomes 14 and 15, are the outcomes that are mainly linked to what we're talking about today, the rent setting process and the financial aspects of the delivery of the housing revenue account. And they reflect our legal duty to consult you, so that's why we're here today. We've got to consult with you about affordability and about informing you how your rent money is spent. And then we must decide as a landlord how we publish that information on spend and the format and the level of detail. So we'll decide with you as tenants how we do that. I must stress that the decision is made in partnership with tenants, and as part of the role and remit of the new group that I've just described, they will be looking at this process, how it happens and how we can improve it. And I think there's more information in that in the upcoming edition of your autumn edition of On the House. Okay, and as I say, discussions must take place about rent, and any decisions that are made must reflect your views as tenants. Okay, it's not decisions or views of us as the housing team, it must reflect your views. This is our little bubble slide, and this is our 6th year of the approach to tenant consultation. A group was established in 2014 who decided the best way to undertake this consultation process, and those of you who were here last year, who watched the video clip earlier on, will be aware that we've enhanced this approach. So this is the second year now where we give you options to vote for. Before, we used to take the information, we'd say, right, this is what the rent will be. Over the last couple of years we've said, this is all of the information you've given us, you can have this rent level, or this rent level, and this is what you will get for that. So you've now got options to choose from, which is really, really good, but probably a wee bit more complicated in terms of your decision making. Okay, so as Councillor Braun mentioned, we're delighted to see a huge increase, a 366% increase in the number of tenants voting this year. So earlier on this year, with your initial April edition of On the House, voting survey went out saying, what are your priorities for us when we deliver housing services? That slide is maybe not quite as clear, so I'm not sure if you can really read that, but I'll give you a wee idea of what it says. I can't actually read it very clearly on my own slide here. I need to get my glasses fixed. So, providing a high quality repair service, everybody always votes for that. That continues to be a high priority, and absolutely quite rightly, because you all get repairs undertaken to your homes. And again, keeping your home well maintained and warm continues to be a high priority. Interestingly this year, improving services to our older tenants is a priority, so that's really good. We've got an ageing population, not just within our tenants, but across Perth and Kinross, and we need to look at how we can continue to deliver good services, which we do, but actually improve those as well. Investing in your home, so that's through our capital programme and capital improvements. Increasing the number of council homes we build for rent or buy through a buyback and new build scheme. Improving maintenance of your local neighbourhood. We've done loads of really good work there and had really positive feedback. And other ones there at the end are how we support tenants to sustain their tenancies. And again, interestingly, at the opposite end of improving services for older tenants, improving services to younger tenants. So that's really good. I think that's been quite an inclusive vote from all of you for all tenants there. So thank you for everybody who participated in that. Next slide, the feedback from the surveys that we get and the conference, we had a conference in June of this year, is then considered. We look at that information, but as a service we also have to look at the service pressures that we've identified and use that to develop the housing revenue account spending priorities for the next few years. So we considered the impact of the pressures and savings against the housing revenue account business plan and assess the short and long-term impacts to ensure the ongoing financial health of the service. So again, a key task there for Stephen and our finance colleagues. These proposals are then submitted to our senior management team for consideration prior for us to coming along today, which is when we're now sharing the information that we've pulled together with you. I would stress that over the years we have delivered a significant amount of efficiency savings across... Oh. It's now run out. So since 2016-17, we have actually delivered just under 1.2 million of savings in our housing revenue account. So that is significant. And that's what we're doing. We're delivering as efficient value for money services as we possibly can for you, so that you have a high level of service delivery, but the rents are kept as low as they possibly can. So you can see on the slide there that we've delivered $500,000 of savings within our housing repairs transformation programme. General efficiency savings of just over 300,000. We've introduced mobile working and are continuing to do that, and that has delivered good efficiencies to the tune of 239,000, and through some income generation activities delivered 139,000. So really, good savings there, and that's why we're continuing to keep the rent levels as low as we possibly can. So, what have we got in terms of proposals here? And we can talk some more in detail. Michelle will touch on this in more detail with you. What I am going to stress to you this year is over the last few years we have kept your rent increases very, very low. The average national rent increase is sat, am I stealing some of your presentation here, Michelle? So our average rent increase has sat much lower than the national average. We've kept your rent levels low. In the current year we've faced some real pressures in terms of our housing repairs and our voids. Okay, we've had new properties introduced into, added to our stock, and some of the costs of our repair services, not just us but nationally in terms of supplies and stock, have gone up. So we're needing to really focus on that area in terms of the rent increase for next year. I'll not steal all of Michelle's detail then, so I'll just run through. Am I stealing your detail? So I'll just run through some of the proposed savings and Michelle will come to that. So what we're looking at is potentially not further increasing our estate-based initiative. We've got a lot of money in the estate-based initiative scheme, and each year we'd added in an extra 50,000. We're thinking we maybe don't need to use that 50,000 into next year. We'll still have the estate-based initiatives, absolutely assure you of that, but the budget for that sits at about 300,000, so that level will be maintained. There are other areas there in terms of just we have to review some of our non-staff budgets, and so we've identified some savings in there. We've identified some savings in terms of external voids and some of the charges that we recover from that, and likewise some planned maintenance charges and rationalisation of council buildings. This was in as of last year. We've reduced the number of buildings that we use, and that's delivered some savings. And through a review of our garden maintenance scheme, there's been some savings that have been identified in there. Okay. Next slide. Michelle will talk about all of this in more detail and give probably a more detailed explanation. This slide gives an overview of some of the pressures that we've identified. So through some of the feedback that we've got, and for us having a look at some of the pressures that we're facing as a service, there are a number of pressures. Some of these ones in terms of increase in staff costs, adjustment to our bad and doubtful debt provision, movement in loan charges. These are all annual ones that we have to look at in terms of maintaining the financial health of the service. But what we've looked at there is estate-based initiatives, housing repairs and external voids, is taking out, as I said, the estate-based initiatives increase, but putting in an additional pressure to enable us to continue to deliver a high level of repair service to you. You'll remember from the previous slide with all the charts, housing repairs is one of the main priorities for all tenants, and in order for us to continue to maintain the level of service delivery, good quality repair service, we need to put in some more money into next year. We're looking also to introduce a personalised tenant budget. Some of you may recall, a couple of years ago, we introduced within the homeless team a budget for the frontline staff to really support people in terms of preventing homelessness. So little kind of niggly things that might come up when our staff are out on the patch, in the locality teams with tenants, just enabling them to have a little bit of money to support tenants with a response. So, for example, to support you to maintain your tenancy, respond to any kind of little niggling issues that normally we would have to go through quite a detailed budget process. So we're proposing a small fund to support that. Planned maintenance and pressure in there of 195,000. We've got some systems work that we need to do to our Housing Northgate system, so a small fund in there. And making permanent a housing occupational therapist. We appointed last year on a temporary basis a dedicated housing occupational therapist. And again, this links to the priority about supporting older people. She's been in post probably just under a year, a lot less than a year, 6 months, and is doing a fantastic job, really supporting in terms of identifying bathroom adaptations, any of our particular tenants' needs that they need within the property, linking with the other OTs that work within the Health and Social Care Partnership. So in terms of meeting that, supporting our older people, we're proposing that we make that post permanent. I think this is my last slide before I pass over to Michelle. A few years ago we agreed with tenants at this conference to introduce a 5-year rent strategy. It's important to highlight that this was a strategy but not the agreed increase for the 5-year period. The purpose of the strategy is detailed on the slide, and it aims to provide you with an idea of the level of rent increases required over the short term, although it is subject to change based on the consultation. The proposed rent strategy sat about 2.2%, and I have to say that over the last 3 years since we introduced it, although we thought we would be anticipating a 2.2% increase each year, we've come under that, so we've delivered a significantly lower increase. But it really was to give tenants an idea roughly of what the increase would be. Okay, I'm going to pass over to Michelle now.
And microphones, we seem to be working our way through them quite well. So in terms of starting off, what I would like to discuss with you today initially before we look at the rent increase options is our service charges. There's some tenants in here who will be receiving these services. Just to point out at the start that Claire talked about the housing revenue account and the guidance on how we spend money and how it should only be used to benefit tenants. So when we talk about service charges, we are required to fully recover the costs of the service. So you may remember, for some of you who are seasoned pros at this event, that these charges are based on what the services actually cost us over the previous financial year. So you can see there, in terms of our garden maintenance scheme, the proposal is to increase that charge to £124. That is in line with a previous committee decision to increase the charge over a set number of years as opposed to in one initial year to fully recover the costs of the service. In terms of our retirement complexes, the proposal that charge will increase to £214.77. And then without going through them all individually, you can see there we have some complexes where there's a heating and lighting charge. Again, the costs and the proposed annual charge for 2020-21 reflects the actual cost of that service for the previous financial year. And certainly, for any residents in any of these complexes who have any concerns, our staff will be more than happy to support you between now and the final decision in terms of committee, and then up into including April when the charge becomes live. Okay. So Claire touched on this in terms of the rent increase levels. Over a number of years, Perth and Kinross Council has worked hard to keep our rent level increases to a minimum. In comparison with neighbouring authorities and the Scottish national average, and our rents are the most affordable housing option in Perth and Kinross. As you'll see from later on in this presentation, they're significantly lower than other social housing providers, so real housing option, the alternatives that are available in Perth and Kinross. In fact, if you look at the chart over the last 3 years in Perth and Kinross, rent increases have been slightly over 50% lower than the national average. So you can see there the national average for Scotland over 3 years has seen rents increase by 7.6%. In Perth and Kinross we're sitting at 3.7%. And you can see there the variance with some of the neighbouring local authorities. Claire alluded to this earlier. The housing revenue account does, however, face general increase in costs in key areas of service delivery, particularly repairs and improvements. And it's interesting the link there to that always being your top priority when it comes to spending your rent money. This is in the main due to an increase in our stock numbers through our successful new build and buyback programme. In turn, this means that we've got more properties becoming available for relet, requiring any necessary repair works to be completed before a new tenant moves in. Our stock base is ageing, and also, as Claire mentioned, the general cost of stock purchase and fuel costs have increased nationally. So these are challenges that a number of local authorities will be facing. And it's important that all of this needs to be reflected in this year's rent level proposals to allow us to continue to meet our obligations to you as a landlord and to maintain our current performance. So in terms of the key slide, what are the 3 options in terms of the proposals for rent increase options for 2021? The first option would be a 3.5% increase. This option will allow us, as you will see, to continue to deliver on your priorities and maintain the current levels of service. However, as we've said, we face a particular challenge within our voids, and the 3.5% increase would allow us to continue to deliver and perform as we are doing around that. This year coming up, looking at what's been happening in the previous years, we are forecasting that we'll continue to have around about a 19% increase in the number of properties coming back to us for relet. And whilst this is fantastic and it allows us to deliver great outcomes such as Home First, reducing overcrowding, preventing homelessness and reducing the need for bed and breakfast, it places a significant pressure on the service to deliver. It's for this reason that we've proposed increased investment in this particular area within both options 2 and 3, allowing us to ensure that we can continue to minimise wherever possible our void relet timescales and void rent loss. What is really important to stress is that regardless of the option chosen by tenants, we will maintain our current capital programme with guaranteed investment in such areas as, and not restricted, this is just some of the highlights, central heating, 1.3 million, a rewiring programme, 3 million, windows and doors and triple glazing, 250,000, kitchen upgrades, 4.5 million, external fabric of your buildings, 6.7 million, and our energy efficiency programme of 2.3 million. So the choice that you make between now and when it's approved at committee in January will not affect our capital programme, and it's really, really important for me to stress that to you today. So the next slide, we don't think that this will be quite visible enough for you, so I think my colleagues are going to hand out sheets that you can look at, so I'll just give them a couple of seconds. Scott will process the link and we'll see what... This is a really important bit. So this is the bit where, as Claire said, when we consult and engage with you, it's not just about saying, here's the increase levels, what one would you prefer? It's very important that to allow you to make an informed decision, that you know what that means in terms of the level of investment in your home and also the services that we deliver directly to you. And I'm going to have to borrow a sheet as well because I really can't see that. I probably need my glasses fixed as well. I'll just wait a couple of minutes till everybody's got. Okay, I think, is that just about everybody? Right, we'll get 4 for the front here as well, please. If we've got enough. Right down the front, Kevin. We'll get to you. I've only got one left. It was for all of them. Okay. So, for those of you who took part in the survey last year, you'll be aware that as well as the capital programme, there are some areas within our rent increase options that aren't impacted by what option you choose. So the first box in the table there, you'll see that this is increased in new investment regardless of what option you choose. So it doesn't matter whether you choose 1, 2 or 3, that everything in that box is guaranteed, and that's new and increased investment in housing repairs and voids to meet the increased demand and the increased cost. Claire alluded to the personalised tenant budget to support tenancy sustainment, both for all tenants, so that can be young tenants, it can be older tenants, it can be absolutely anybody to help somebody sustain a tenancy. It can be as simple as being able to provide a bus fare to someone to come into Perth to be able to meet their claimant commitments under universal credit because they have no spare funds themselves to do this. Increased investment in planned maintenance under all of the options. Investment in IT developments to support mobile working. During 2020-21, all our locality teams will become fully mobile and will be able to access services live in your home and access your accounts to be able to give you up-to-date information. And as Clare mentioned, we're also proposing to make permanent the dedicated housing occupational therapists, doing excellent work not only around adaptations but also looking at extensions on medical grounds, reflecting the ageing population and also again linking to one of your priorities when it comes to spending your rent money and services to older people. But what does change for each of the options is the additional investment that we would be allowed to make. So if the vote was for option 1 for a 3.5% increase, as well as all of the things I've just talked to you about, this would allow us to put an extra 4 million for the purchase of additional properties through our buyback scheme. That would total around 30 properties, and an extra 1 million for property refurbishments. You can see underneath again what we've done this year, because your feedback last year was that was very beneficial to see what that level of increase would mean depending on your property size. So in terms of our average weekly rent increase, you can see that we've detailed that under the section, and it ranges from £1.66 a week for a bedsit to £3.11 per week increase for a 4-bedroomed or larger property. In terms of option 2, you can see there that would be an extra 5 million for their buyback project, so that would be around 38 additional properties we'd be able to purchase. We would leave it as an extra 1 million for property refurbishments. We would increase, so I talked earlier about guaranteed in our capital programme was the rewiring amount. We would be able to increase that further by £500,000, bringing an additional 200 properties into that. We could increase investment in kitchens by £250,000, that would be an additional 140 properties. We could increase investment in energy efficiency by 1 million, so an additional 250 properties, so trying to make our homes as energy efficient as possible and therefore reducing fuel costs for our tenants. We could increase investment in sound insulation. We repeatedly, are dealing with concerns around noise transference. As I've said, our stock is ageing and it was built to standards quite some time ago. Sound insulation has moved on since then, so that would allow us to increase investment in there by £250,000. And again, we're proposing additional investment to outsource the rent voting survey. So the survey that you're away to get sent out to you where you pick the option. We've been working closely with our SURE team who assessed our annual performance in the charter, and you'll get that out with your on the house. They are very, very keen to strengthen the voice of tenants. Yes, we got an excellent result and we got 1,032 surveys back last year, which was around 15%. The SURE team would like to see us increase that to between 25 to 30%. So our proposal would be, like our tenant satisfaction survey, we would outsource that to an independent company, and that would guarantee us that result. So that would be under option 2, and you can see there in terms of your average rent levels ranging from £1.90 for a bedsit per week increase to £3.55 for a 4-bedroom plus. In terms of the final option, option 3, a 4.5% increase, again similar to option 2, we would leave the extra 5 million in terms of the buybacks, but we would increase the value of property refurbishments to 1.75 million. We would leave the rewiring at 500,000, and we would leave the kitchen programme. We would increase the energy efficiency by 1.75 million, so that would allow 440 homes to fall within that. In terms of sound insulation, we would leave that the same as option 2. In terms of additional £250,000 for housing with additional support, so helping us to support people to live independently in their own home. A new £1 million budget for locality priorities in partnership with tenants. So something similar to estate-based initiatives, but this would very much be a sort of participatory budgetary type event where tenants would drive what that money was spent on, and it would be their decisions and their voice, and it could be different across all the localities. And again, the proposal would be to include within that the additional investment to get the 25 to 30% return rate on our survey. So at the upper end of that, you're looking at a £2.13 per week increase for bed sits, up to a round figure of £4 per week for a 4-bedroom property. So just wait till... Taxi is here. I don't know if you can rearrange that to come back later, or whether you need to go now. If you can make yourself known. Okay, so Claire's talked about... Sorry, just... No, my eyesight's bad, but... Okay, so Claire said it's all about ensuring that we make sure our rents are affordable. For some of you who've been here before, you know that we developed a couple of years ago an affordability model, and it looks at local income levels in Perth and Kinross, and it works out how affordable our rents are, and it's vitally important that we understand that. The table that you can see on your screen, which shows you what average rent levels in Perth and Kinross would be from April 2020 for each of the 3 options, and compares them with rent levels of our 3 neighbouring local authorities, Dundee, Angus and Fife. What we've done differently this year as well is, last year the figures we gave you were the current rent levels that these authorities were charging. What we've done is looked at the figures, and we've made an estimated increase in terms of that, and I think it's along the line, Stephen, is it 2.2%? 2.5% average we've applied to that, so that you're trying, you can see there we're comparing apples with apples, so it's what their rent levels would be in 2020-21 and continuing to compare that against us. So as you can see, all 3 rent increase options compare well, even with the higher level of increase in terms of how far we are below. So option 1, the average rent level, we're 5% lower than neighbouring local authorities. Option 2, we're 4% lower than other authorities, and option 3, again 4% lower than other local authorities. I have to say that when we've looked at this at Housing Management team, we've looked at the national comparisons, and we've looked at what we believe other local authorities are going to do in terms of their increases. We are confident that nationally we would continue to remain one of the lowest local authority rent levels, regardless of which option was chosen. But I think it's always important to look at what are the other options that are available to you in terms of social housing in Perth and Kinross, and that's, for example, Caledonia Housing Association, Hillcrest Housing Association, Kingdom, and it's really, really important that we look at how we compare in terms of their rent levels. Again, we've done the same. We've assumed a 2.5% increase will be applied for these social housing providers, and we've looked at what our rent levels would look at like in April 2020, and you can see there, this is where you see the stark difference locally. So you can see there under option 1, our average rent level would be 25% lower than other housing providers in the area, and some quite stark figures you can see there, particularly around our bed sits, 48% lower, 26% or 25% lower for 1 beds, 23 to 24% lower for 2 beds, 21 to 22% lower for 3 beds, and 21 to 22% lower from 4 bedroom and larger. And this is comparing us with real alternative options that you as tenants have in terms of your housing in Perth and Kinross. So each of the options compares really favourably with local alternatives. Okay. So when considering what's affordable rent, there's no set calculation. However, the housing needs demand analysis estimates that it should be around 25% of your available income should be used to meet housing costs. But in reality, from research and from work that's been done, it's on average between 25 to 30% that is spent towards housing costs. The first table you can see there, and apologies for the white writing if it's not clear, but I'll read it out. In terms of, we've looked at the minimum wage in Perth and Kinross for over 25s. If you were on minimum wage, under each of the options you would be putting about 25% of your income towards your housing costs. I have to stress this is without any benefit or universal credit entitlement, okay? For local authorities it would be 25, and for RSLs in the area, based on minimum wage and income levels from May 2019 this year, you would be spending around 30%. For the minimum wage for over 21s, for option 1 and 2, slightly above the average, but still within the 25, well within the 25 to 30%, 26% of your income. And again, you can see that option 3, 27% for local authority and 32% for an RSL. So we've done the same for living wage. We've enhanced our approach slightly this year because at previous conferences, when we've put up minimum wage for over 21s and over 25s and living wage, we've been asked on a couple of occasions, well, what about non-working age, what about pensioners, what would that rent level look like for them? So what we've enhanced our model to do is we've looked at the average UK pension, and based on that, within the options, you would be spending around 14 to 20% of your income towards housing costs. Obviously that's based on what size of property potentially you would be entitled to, so the model very much looks along the lines of it would be a 1 or a 2 bedroomed property. So all of those results fare well. In terms of overall in Perth and Kinross, the percentage of residents who can afford a PKC rent without housing benefit or universal credit is 83%, and that's remained static. It was 83% last year, and it's 83% this year with each of the options that you can see there. In terms of our RSLs, 77% of residents in Perth and Kinross could afford the rent without assistance for housing costs, and that's actually dropped 1%. It was sitting at 78% last year. So each of the options in terms of the definition of affordability fit within the 25 to 30%, and as I say, particularly pleasing is despite the 3.54 or 4.5% option, 83% of people can still afford their rent without assistance. So, in terms of the next steps, the voting forms will be sent out to all current tenants through On the House, or you can actually this year complete the survey online via the consultation hub. Our staff and our teams will be making a concerted effort to beat the 1,032 responses we got last year. We will also send the voting form out to anyone on our housing list who's under offer to one of our homes, because they're our future tenants, and it's important we hear their voice when it comes to the proposals. The voting outcomes will be included in the report to Housing and Communities Committee for approval at our January committee, and as we would do, all tenants will be notified of the outcome in writing, so you'll get your minimum of your 4 weeks notice about your increase. What we're going to do now is obviously quite a lot for you to take in. We're going to have slightly longer break than we would normally have, because we're really keen, if you have any questions, that you jot them down on the question sheets that you have there. You pop them in the vote here box, ably pointed out by my glamorous assistant Kevin. And what we'll do is, as a panel, we'll come back after the break and we will endeavour to answer as many of your questions as possible. Please be assured that if we don't have time to answer all your questions, we will post something, we will put something out within your locality teams to let you know and respond to all the answers, including what we've discussed here today, because as Claire said, this is videoed, so it's important that we provide that feedback to the wider tenant body as well. So I think we're breaking, and I think our refreshments through the back. So either fill your questions in now and pop them in the box, or go and grab something to eat, come back, pop your questions in the paper, We really want to hear your views. It's really, really important, and it's important that you give us that challenge as a housing management team around the decisions, because as Clare said, this affects every single one of you. Okay? Thank you very much.